Well, to say that was a bitter pill to swallow is probably an understatement for Newcastle United. Despite this game being there for Newcastle to take, they went 1-0 up in the second half. But ultimately, I think you've got to look at the statistics after this one. Newcastle didn't have a single shot on target, had to rely on a Mark Gahey own goal to put them 1-0 up. But for all that, they looked like they'd survived wave after wave of Crystal Palace attacks until the 94th minute, when eventually Palace got their act together just as Newcastle thought they'd cleared one last effort. Joe Linton screaming after a clearance for a throw-in, but the ball was recycled. It went back to Mark Gahey. He angled a cross in, and Crystal Palace get a point. Newcastle will look back on this and think it was a nightmare scenario. Perhaps when the dust settles, it might look like a decent point, but I think really Newcastle knew they had 3 points in the pocket there to head back to the northeast, and they're going to have to rebuild again for that game against Liverpool now. The Newcastle players sunk to their knees when that equaliser went in, even though there was still a minute or so left to play. But thankfully, Newcastle fans did not see their team lose the game today. I suppose that's the only consolation on a long train of capital. Newcastle losing Alexander Isak in the first half with a hip injury. They then regrouped for the second half. Anthony Gordon putting the ball in the box, which Mark Gahey turned past his own goalkeeper to put Newcastle 1-0 up. A lead Newcastle held until the 94th minute, when Palace finally got their act together, put a ball in the box through Gahey, who made up for his error, and then Muniz hammers home for Palace, and Newcastle leave here with just a point. It was, the players looked in a state of disbelief at the final whistle here. But I think on a day when they haven't had a shot on target, perhaps they can't really complain, because Palace, you know, they had the chances. Nick Pope made so many saves. Dan Burn cleared one off the line. It was just one of those days for Newcastle. They thought they'd survived. They didn't get away with it. They conceded late on. And Newcastle leave here with just a point. They must now regroup again for that game against Liverpool in midweek. Well, we did catch a word with Eddie Howe after the game. We asked him about Alexander Isak and the injury situation, and he said it was good news in his eyes because it wasn't a muscle pull. It was just a knock to the side, and he hopes that he's going to be back sooner rather than later. So perhaps a bit of consolation for Newcastle there today. Disappointing to not pick up the full 3 points, but ultimately I think Newcastle got through the game, and they'll feel that, you know, if Isak is fully fit and Wilson is getting fitter every game, then they're going to have options, and that's all they can hope for.